But once he's in that ring, he has to fight like his life is dependent on it, because it will be.
Listen, I started Jake off and I'm gonna finish him.
Now way. Mike Tyson just crushed Jake Paul into pieces, and the internet can't stop making fun of the overambitious boxer. Poor Jake Paul has no option other than crying because Mike just undressed his 4 years of existence in the boxing industry as nothing but a wholly fraudulent stunt plan. And now that we think of it, Mike Tyson may just be right. Jake has never been in a real fight, but Mike has just put him in one. Jake's trash talk is light years away from what Mike does. And unfortunately, some of the things that Mike said got his point home. That conversation killed Jake, and he is in some place that does not have a visiting time. But seriously, don't you think Jake Paul brought this whole mess on himself? Oh, you don't know the backstory? Now let's fill you in. But before we get into the details, kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons.
Hey, I hope y'all keep that same energy when I knock this old man the out.
Jake Paul has been trying to get Mike Tyson into the boxing ring for the past 2 years. He was not just asking if he wanted to fight. What Paul has been doing bordered on obsession. He transformed his social media into a huge campaign where he used all means to fight Tyson. Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, you name it. Jake would be found on those platforms calling out Tyson. It was a mix of desperation and bravado to him. In the digital age, he must have felt like he was Don Quixote, and anything Tyson did was like a windmill in his face. In every Instagram post, tweet, or YouTube video, all one had to do was to go through them with a toothpick in case he wanted a rise from Tyson. Tyson kept mute for about 2 years without end. Not a single response from him. Just absolute radio silence. This only caused the intensity of the entire situation to rise further. Fans and other professional boxers watched how Jake became more and more loud, hoping for any reaction from Tyson. Some even made bets on the likelihood of such a reaction, but not many cared about losing, because there was only hope that remained. At the peak of everything, Tyson surprisingly accepted the fight. Now this is what everyone has waited for, including Jake Paul himself. But is really ready to face one of the boxing community's greatest players. The boxing community was thrown into collective despair when it was announced that Mike Tyson, the iconic heavyweight champion, had agreed to get into the ring with a YouTube personality turned pugilist. Mike Tyson did not make any fuss over the matter and did not exhibit any form of fanfare despite Jake's persistent efforts. In contrast to Jake, who was flamboyantly parading himself around, Mike Tyson simply accepted the challenge, casually saying, "Oh well, let's give it a shot." Jake Paul used various social media strategies to stir up excitement. Tyson, on the other hand, did not need to utter anything because all his background information is enough. A lot was happening in Jake's social media accounts that bordered on hyping the fight in order not to lose his followers' interest. He acted as a small player that no one believed in for the bout lorded over by a giant against an apprentice who had been brave enough to challenge such a heavyweight. Mike Tyson's career has definitely been legendary, going on for 38 years and containing events that have cemented his reputation as one of the best boxers in history. He first appeared on the stage in 1986 when he was only 20 years old by becoming the youngest heavyweight champion ever then. He didn't just triumph over, he demolished Trevor Berbick during the second round, thus commencing his reign in the boxing world with a bang. In his career, Tyson won 50, 44 by knockout fights, and only lost 6. He defeated the likes of Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks, Frank Bruno, who were heavyweight boxers. In 1988, he knocked Michael unconscious within 91 seconds during their match with each other for a heavyweight title. Now, you see why people are quite frankly scared for Jake Paul. The reason for Tyson's nickname Iron Mike could easily be seen in his ring strength, as well as intensity, matched by none. As Tyson grew older, no one ever forgot that he was still one of those boxers who possessed animal-like aggression whenever they entered into the ring. Just recently, in 2020, at 50 years old, this same person came back into professional boxing limelight when he faced off against Roy Jones Jr., another icon in this game, during an exhibition bout which ended in a tie break. Although many say otherwise, considering their respective old age as fighters with long-time experience under their belts. What most people did not expect was how well he performed. boxing is still about maintaining power and concentration. Not many individuals manage to reach and maintain such a level of performance when they are in their 50s in this game. But Tyson is credited with exceptional boxing abilities due to his unprecedented power that he wields during fights. His signature style was an explosive punch, which had the capability of finishing off an opponent at once during fights. He was known for throwing uppercuts and hooks that could make competitors retreat because they caused disorientation that lasted over the entire duration of a bout. However, Tyson did not rely entirely on brute force. His defensive techniques as well as fast reflex actions show some genius strategizing on his part too. In Tyson's preparation for the match with Paul, his mentality was not aimed at belittling him or taking off the challenge lightly, but towards respecting the game and his own history. He trained as a warrior who was at his peak, with all the seriousness and intensity. This showed that his determination and dedication were still unbreakable. So for Tyson, fighting Paul meant recalling in everyone's mind the potential power, talent, and love which made him famous in the first place. The May press conference was really explosive. Cameras were flashing, the press was abuzz, and Mike Tyson took to the stage with a tension that sent shivers up everyone's spine. Jake Paul, characterized by a trashy nature, had come to realize it the hard way. Tyson never wasted any moment before he launched into a stinging rebuke against Paul. He started by pointing out how Paul had been used to fighting with opponents having very little experience. He taunted him in front of television cameras, scoffing that Jake had only fought people who couldn't even tie up his gloves. There were gasps and whispered gossip through the audience as Tyson's words hit home hard. Tyson's speech was a harsh indictment that made Paul's attempt at self-control difficult, even if not impossible. During the press conference, Tyson addressed a memorable topic which was about Paul's incapability of winning against a real battle-tested fighter. He said, "How is he going to knock me out? Anderson Silva? He didn't knock those little guys out. How is he going to knock me out?" Additionally, Tyson threw an unscripted personal blow on Paul's fitness and went on to say this in a lighthearted way. Although Paul has become popular and made news by fighting, Tyson's criticism hinted his major might be more about entertaining than actual boxing talent. Tyson indicated the lack of proper physical conditioning here in the sport would leave Paul's abilities very restricted. Jake Paul's pent-up anger peaked after the press conference, which was very explosive. On the 20th May 2024, he was filmed having an apparently relaxed moment with his sibling, Logan. The situation suddenly turned chaotic. Jake was very disturbed such that he started throwing bottles in any direction.
Yo, you, by the way.
Oh my goodness! What is going on?
The glass shattered and bottles hit the walls to fill the air with unease. Paul's response was quite clear that he was uncomfortable with judgment since he could not take it any longer. Memes and abominable views flew on social media. It was evident that the ridicule and pressure from the public were too much for him to bear.
I fear no man, which is the motto for this fight. And July 20th, people will see me against maybe my toughest opponent to date and see how easy and quickly I stop him.
Paul's tantrum had immediate consequences. On May 22, 2024, Jake Paul announced that he was canceling his fight against Mike Tyson, and shockwaves were sent across the boxing community and beyond. It wasn't just his image that was hit by this announcement, but it also changed what will happen in future regarding his boxing career. It was also revealed on that day that he had elected to face Mike Perry instead. Perry, a former UFC fighter with a respectable boxing record, was seen as a safer and more manageable challenge for Jake. The reasons behind this switch were crystal clear. Jake needed a fight that was within his reach, both physically and mentally. "Yeah, the news is true, folks. I, Jake Paul, will be fighting Mike Perry," he said. The cancellation was met with overwhelmingly negative public feedback. Paul was viewed by a lot of people as behaving like a coward. It was such comments that filled the social media, accusing Jake of shying away from an actual challenge. On Twitter, different hashtags were flying all around, with many such memes reflected around Tyson-Jake scared theme. I think the common feeling was that Jake had made noise but did not deliver on the material day. However, Tyson was not readily forgiving towards Jake. He remarked shortly, thus, "Ringside battling can be quite unforgiving, but tough fighters are those who are capable of fighting other fighters under any circumstances." The previous statement shows that Tyson cannot just let things go with Jake, as it is possible he could meet him again, or at least indicate that he will condemn him before others if need be. Jake Paul's team scrambled to manage the PR crisis. In the process, they released some statements which were stressing Jake's commitment to boxing, as well as saying he had intentions of becoming better in future. Meanwhile, another video defending Jake's resolutions was uploaded by Logan Paul, who also pleaded with fans to take the great pressure which influenced these choices into consideration. However, Jake's reputation had already been shattered. Mike Tyson shook up the situation by setting a new date for the match. In a surprise move on May 25, 2024, Tyson stated that the fight would be held later in the summer, on November 15, 2024. Different date and same fate. Jake Paul, don't forget that boxing is not a one-man show. Paul was not in a position to call off the fight on impulse, bearing in mind 2 years of hype, overwhelming public support, and suspense. When you decide on something, don't back down, Mike Tyson emphasized. Well, don't you agree that Jake totally deserved this epic roasting by Tyson? And who would have thought he'd start crying over it? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates. And hey, hit that like button too.